House of Atrius was forged in blood and ultimately destroyed by it. Its origin lies with Tantalus, a mortal king once beloved by the gods, but his arrogance turned divine favor into fury. In a horrifying act meant to test the gods, Tantalus murdered his own son Pelops and served him as a feast on Mount Olympus. The gods were appalled. They resurrected Pelops and cast Tantalus into eternal torment in the underworld, where he would forever thirst and hunger, never able to reach the food or water just out of reach, a punishment so cruel his name became synonymous with suffering. But the gods' wrath didn't stop with him. They cursed his bloodline, setting into motion one of the darkest legacies in Greek mythology. Pelops, though restored, was not spared from corruption. To win the hand of Princess Hippodamia, he sabotaged a chariot race by betraying the king who hosted it. The king died, and with his dying breath, he cursed Pelops and his descendants. That curse would fester, infecting generation after generation. Pelops had two sons, Atrius and Thyestes. Instead of ruling in unity, they fell into bitter rivalry. When Atrius discovered that Thyestes had committed adultery with his wife, he plotted a revenge as monstrous as any in myth. He invited his brother to a feast and served him a meal made from the flesh of Thyestes' own children. When Thyestes learned the truth, he cried out in horror and cursed Atrius with all the rage and sorrow of a broken man. But the curse had already taken root, and the gods were still watching. From Atrius came two more sons, Agamemnon and Menelaus. They would become great kings, but even their glory could not escape the blood-drenched fate of their lineage. When Agamemnon prepared to lead the Greek forces to war against Troy, he offended the goddess Artemis. To calm her wrath and gain favorable winds for the voyage, he committed an unthinkable act. He sacrificed his own daughter, Iphigenia. Though he won the war, he lost everything at home. Upon his return, Agamemnon was murdered in his own palace by his wife, Clytemnestra, who had never forgiven him for the death of their daughter. Her vengeance was cold and calculated, and it ended the life of a man who had once commanded the greatest army in Greece. But the tragedy didn't end there. Their son Orestes was caught in a torment of divine and moral conflict. The gods demanded he avenge his father's death, but doing so meant killing his own mother. Torn by duty and despair, Orestes obeyed, and in doing so, invited a new terror into his life. The Furies, ancient goddesses of vengeance, rose from the shadows to pursue him. They drove him mad, haunting his every step, until he sought redemption in the temples of Apollo and Athena. It took a divine trial, argued by gods themselves for the cycle of vengeance to end. But by then, the House of Atreus had already collapsed. Each generation had tried to escape the curse. Each had failed. The sins of the father were never forgiven. They were inherited, like crowns of iron passed from one bloodied hand to the next. The House of Atreus became more than a dynasty. It became a symbol of the inescapable weight of fate, the horror of inherited guilt, and the fury of gods who never forget. Even the innocent suffered. In the world of Greek mythology, redemption was rare and mercy rarer still. The House of Atreus stood as a monument to the truth that some curses are not broken, they are endured generation after generation until there is nothing left but dust and myth. And so ends the story of the House of Atreus. Not with triumph, but with ruin. A family line that began with divine favor crumbled under the weight of its own sins. Generation after generation tried to escape the shadows cast by their ancestors, only to fall deeper into them. Fathers betrayed sons, brothers turned on brothers, children paid for crimes they never committed. It was a dynasty where love was poisoned by revenge, and victory always came at the cost of blood. Even when justice was served, it was served with a blade. The gods watched, judged, and punished, but never forgave. And perhaps that is the deepest tragedy of all, not the cruelty of fate, but the fact that no one ever truly escaped it. The House of Atreus became more than just a cursed family. It became a mythic warning echoing through time that some legacies are too heavy to carry and some sins are never truly buried. Like the video, share it with fellow mythology lovers, and subscribe to the channel for more tales of ancient power, betrayal, and fate.